Okay, so now that we're done with the pouch and we have the basic idea set forth for what we're going to do with it, what we're going to do is we're going to fill the pouch. Now, I didn't actually put any sigils on these. We're going to be putting the sigils on them together, and then you can see different ways that you can incorporate sigils into your practice. But to have a bit of variety in the protection and also to add a bit of different layers, we're going to be filling the center pouch, which is this one right here, which is bounded by the red and the black. We are going to add the loose herbs, and then once we are done, we will be closing this, so that will go to a point. We will still have the bay leaves in here, but we will just have the two on the side for more of the outer protection, and that's going to vary depending on which side. And then we're going to bind it at the top from here. Probably just going to melt a safety pin and make a hole like I did in the other Mojo bags, but that's how we're going to hang it. And then in addition to this, we are also going to make a cord for it. So if you would like to add an enchanted cord to this, you can. If not, you can just add your ingredients from this and then go from that point. Also, if you are wondering, or maybe you don't really understand why I'm leaving some of these frayed edges and maybe having this be a bit frayed, it's because that's sort of my look. I am sort of the grunge aesthetic, so that's why this isn't like burnt like some of the other ones are. I did burn and seal properly the inside just so it doesn't come undone, but I don't mind seeing this a bit frayed. It's already coming undone a little bit, which it's still going to be protective, and if I feel it's not, then I can just bind over it. But that's sort of the look that I'm going for. If you want to make this a bit more neat, a bit more straight lined, maybe don't have the random edges, or maybe you don't have the multiple layers, you can do it very simple. We'll just have a plain diamond, but there's multiple different shapes you can do for a Mojo bag. This is just the one that I'm doing. So to get started on the herbs, we're going to be doing the bay leaves later, but to get started on the herbs, we have a cleansed dish. This is just something to help you focus on before you put it into the bag. Also, I would suggest, if maybe you're not used to this, or maybe this is your first Mojo bag, fill this with rice. Fill it up to about as heavy as you would want it to be, and also as densely packed as you want it to be. If you want it to be a bit more stuffed open, maybe you have it hanging from something and you want it to stand out more, or if you want it very flat and minimalistic and maybe you want to have this like under your clothing. Depending on how big you want it, just fill up with rice. Then you can pin it at the top and make sure you have an enclosure that will support the entire thing, not just have it on, say, one piece of fabric, because then if that fails, your whole bag is gone. But make sure that you fill it up properly with rice, and then once you have the amount of rice that you need, you can pour it into some sort of bowl. This will give you a rough estimate on the amount of herbs or the amount of materials that you can keep into this. So if you have, maybe just exaggerate and say half this dish full of rice, that means half this dish full of herbs and ingredients can fit into this. before you close it. Rice also can fill out oblong shapes, so if you have something that isn't straightforward, it would also help for filling out that amount of space. If you would also like, you could also blend these ingredients and add it into there, but I like to add the whole ingredients when I can, or just add the fullest form of the ingredients. But now we're going to go over the specific things that you can put into your Mojo bag, and then different ways that you can incorporate that into different effects for the bag. Time for protecting against deception or any sort of general protection that you would like to add to it. Clothes for protection against gossip, envy, or ill will. This is also good if you would like to take command in any sort of your protection. Maybe you don't want to be more passive. This is good for being a bit more active in your protection. Something to go along with that is cinnamon. This is good for fiery protection, also good for offensive protection. Maybe you don't want to just have a one layer of protection. Maybe you can add this to not only strengthen your protections that you're working with, but also bring a bit more offense into your protections. Rosemary for warding off spirits and negative energy. This is also a good cleansing herb if you would like to add this with any sort of cleansing spells. This is very good for cleansing and protection. Lavender for shielding against negative emotions. This is more for the mental health type of protection. It'll help you to not feel as anxious or not as depressed in your workings. This is also good for calming yourself if you are the anxious type of sad. Next is black peppercorn. This is good for warding off evil and any sort of baneful magic. This is a good beginner thing to use if you like to just have a small bit of protection. You could also use the powdered form, but the peppercorns itself are a bit more protective because of these shells. And this is more of a custom blend, but this is a protection and cleansing black salt. This is something that I use pretty often in my spells just to add a extra dose of protection. I have a video on how to make this exact one on my channel, but the main premise of this is any sort of char, any sort of ash, and then burnt herbs that associate with protection. So technically you can add all of these herbs into this and then just burn it. Add some extra sea salt to this and then that'll be your black salt. But this is specially formatted just for protection. So any sort of protection work I would use this, but you can have different black salts for different protections.